Hello and welcome back to the Laddercast. My name is Sorsha Porter. I am a real estate agent based in Portland, Oregon.
And I am Shannon McAllister, a mortgage lender licensed nationally.
And we are here to help you learn how to leverage your assets and change your life. Today, we are furthering our conversation about how to choose a realtor, and we are talking about how to pick a realtor to help you find your first investment property. And the game plan is much like last time. Shannon's going to ask me questions, and I'm going to try and answer them as best as I can.
It's a format that works well for us. Yes. So in the last couple of episodes, we talked about all things about how to choose your realtor. If you've never had one before, if you've never bought a home before, the things you need to ask, where you might look for one. That's cool. We did that, right? Now we bought a home. We found a realtor. We bought a home. We're doing great. Now, what if we want to maybe buy a second property? What if we're a completely different person and we're looking to purchase investment properties proper? We want to be a real estate investor.
Yeah.
Is that the same realtor? Maybe.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. So we're going to work through that to see what kind of differences a realtor
who specializes in residential versus investment.
There you go. Good words. Yeah. Are they the same person? Are they the different person? Do they have the same skills? Do they have the same knowledge? Tell me all those things.
Okay, well, the first answer is they can be the same person. Oftentimes, they are different people. I know realtors who know the residential market like the back of their hand. They deal with families and young couples who want to get into a home and live in your home. Buying a home as an investment for you to live in is a very different ballgame than buying a home that is an investment for you to make money off of. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people forget this. A lot of people don't know this. And not all realtors know a lot about investment property versus residential. I have been fortunate in my career to work with a lot of investors. I also have parents who were in property investment. My father is a CPA and he specializes in real estate tax, and about 60% of his client base are real estate investors. Mm-hmm. So I come from like a kind of unique background in that I was raised around this. So it made sense when I got into real estate that I would work with investors.
So tell me, I think there are two things to think through regarding real estate investing and what you're going to choose when you're looking for a realtor. One is the properties. So we're going to talk about like how does your investor-minded realtor help you choose and analyze properties. But two, the money side. Property is one thing, monies are another thing.
Yeah.
These are all the things that have to go into consideration. Can your realtor help you with both of those things?
To a degree, yes and no. Your realtor should never be explaining in depth like the lending process to you or the tax process to you.
Not licensed to do so.
They're not licensed to do so, and they should know about it from a high-level overview to give you the basics, and then they should refer you out, which is what I do. I will refer people to a lender who specializes in investing, which, just so y'all know, Shannon actually started her career working with investors. She knows a ton about financing investment properties, and that is a different process than financing residential properties. Different amounts down, different loan options, different things that are allowed and not allowed. And so like I know the basics of it, but people start asking me questions and I'm like, I'm going to give you this person's number or give them your number and you're going to talk to them. The other side of things is, when you get into investment property, it's really important. This is something that not a lot of people do. A lot of people say, I want to buy an investment property. But when I ask 80% of first-time investors that I talk to what they want as an investment property, they have no idea what that is. And it's actually something I really enjoy doing, guiding people on that process. But a real estate agent who has never or doesn't do a lot of investment property work will not know to ask you the question of what are your goals for your investment property.
Right. I think many assume that they're working with sophisticated buyers who know these things already. Yeah. They assume that their buyers know what they're looking for, what they need to cash flow, what their parameters are, what their requirements are. And especially for the first time investor, that is not the case.
No.
If you own 10, sure, easy. But if you are just working at whether you are a house hacker or you're trying to do something along those lines or just figuring out a way in an expensive town like this is to figure out how you're going to actually make money on your investment as opposed to just live in it to enjoy and have as a long-term investment, that takes a different conversation.
It does, and it's a different approach, especially right now where interest rates are higher than they have been in the last, decade. It's really important that you have a plan going in because the key to any investment is cash flow. I've had people literally come to me and say, I'm fine with taking a hit on my monthly if I can grow equity on a property. And that is, in my opinion, a super bad way to go about investing in property. Because maybe down the line you'll make money, but you get into investment for the cash flow month over month.
You would never invest in a stock knowing you're going to take a loss every month, hoping at some point down the road it'll turn around.
Correct. It should be the same with real estate. You should be making money month over month and continue, because you need that for the times where your property is unoccupied. You need the income from it. Otherwise, it's just a depreciating asset. And what the fuck is the point of that? So, excuse my language.
I love it.
Houses are appreciating assets and investment properties are no different, but we look at those appreciations in a very different way. A realtor who specializes, what you're looking for to live in is a very different thing of what you're looking for to rent in. And what I usually tell people to do is think back to renting your first apartment. What were the things you were looking for? For me and my husband, we were looking at, is the neighborhood safe? Do I want to live there? What are the things that are important to me in the unit? Do I want a dishwasher? Do I want, hardwood floors? Do I want how many bedrooms, how many baths? And then the other most important thing is how much does it cost? So put yourself in the shoes of a renter versus when you're looking at a house to buy, you're looking at how will this work for my family long term? Will this make me money 10 years down the line when our family outgrows it or we want to downsize because our kids have gone away to college? And will I feel safe in this neighborhood? Are there things for my family and I to do nearby? It's not the same thing when you're looking at rentals. A lot of times those boxes will cross over, but it is not the same thing. The house that you want to buy to rent out is not the same house you want to buy to live in because you know what? Rentals are temporary and you have to look at it as this is a place that I'm offering as a commodity to someone to live in for a short period of time in their journey to what is their eventual long-term home. And is this place cool enough or profitable enough or interesting enough or the right price that I will consistently have a renter in it?
Mm-hmm. And can I buy that house
at a price that will allow me to make money
Bingo.
Off of it?
In this town, can I afford that house? Can I qualify to buy that house? And if I can, will my mortgage payment be such that I'm going to make money?
So what I typically do, and I think that the best way to explain this is what I typically do when a new investor calls me. I literally talk to one a day. He's awesome. He's really excited about investing, but he calls me up and he says, I want to buy an investment property. And I'm like, awesome. I love working with investors. And the first thing I ask are, okay, what are your goals? And this is super normal. And I expect this from a lot of people, especially when it's their first investment. I'm not sure what should my goals be. And I'm like, well, that's great. Let me tell you what I personally look for in an investment property. I want cash flow of at least around $500 a month, give or take. Then my next question is, do you plan to manage this yourself or are you planning to hire a management company? And usually the next answer for first-time investors is, I'm not sure yet. And I say, okay. The question after that is, how handy are you? And some people are like, I am not handy at all. And other people are like, I used to be in the military and I build engines. And I'm like, pretty handy. I'm going to consider that pretty handy. And And then there are people like me who I'm like, I can paint things and do basic tile work.
Handy's relative.
Handy is totally relative to the person, but what I'm doing during that process is trying to drill down to what sort of property we can get them into. I will also always ask, how much do you have? And you don't have to tell me this, but I am going to need to get a picture of your overall financial place. If you want to wait till we're officially working together, that's totally okay. Because some people are like, I don't really want to give you the keys to the kingdom right now and let you know all my assets. Totally fine. But it's a question that a good realtor will ask you, not because they're trying to be nosy and push into your business, but because, like, at least for me, I'm like mentally doing backflips in my head. Okay, when they say they're handy, I can look at houses that are cosmetic fixers. When they say that they are wanting to make $400 to $600 a month, I can look at single family homes in moderate neighborhoods. And so that's where those questions come from. And when you're looking for a realtor when you're like trying to, like, I guess my advice would be, your realtor should ask you more questions than you ask them if you're looking for a first.
And especially if you don't know what you're doing, right? If your answer to that question is, I don't know what my goals are, other than I'm pretty sure it's smart to buy real estate because that's what a lot of people say. You need someone to tell you what you don't know and to help you learn what it is you think you're trying to do so you can make that decision about what's going to work for you.
Absolutely. I have someone in my life who does a lot of real estate investing, and they don't use me. They're in another state, so it's like it doesn't apply. But one of the things that they do is they often look for houses similar to the types of houses that they would like to live in, because they specifically like family rentals.
Okay.
And they have a family, so to them they're like, I know the family rent. I know what I like in a home, and I want a tenant like me. That's an okay approach. But like in this market here, family rentals don't make as much money as your little 2-in-1 duplexes do, or frankly, condos do even. Because family rentals are also family properties that people are trying to buy for a premium because they want to be in the good school district. They want to be. Okay. And you also have to think about like how many families that can afford a family rental in Portland, which here you're looking at $3,000 plus a month.
Why don't they just own a home?
And the reality is a lot of family rentals they end up not having tenants for extended periods of time, because finding families who can afford that kind of rent every month that would most likely just buy, because why would I pay $3,500 a month for a house I don't own when I could pay that much and own it and realize the equity?
Yeah. So there are two camps in rentals, specifically in Portland, because rent is increasing as it is everywhere. But in Portland specific, rent is high. Rent is increasing. We just got approved for City of Portland. Landlords can max out at a 15% rent increase next year. Good luck renters with their incomes aren't increasing 15%. So
it's
bingo.
It's rough out there.
Oh, yeah, it is. So if you have two camps. There are people who are willing to pay the $3,500 a month in rent because they may not be here for a long period of time. Buying may not make sense. There are people who will absolutely rent those family homes at those higher prices.
Yep.
There are families who can afford it, but are just going to buy a house because that makes generally more sense if you are going to be here long term. Why would you pay $3,000 plus a month in rent when you could own a home if you can swing it for the same amount? Or they're the families that can't afford that much because it's a whole lot of money. And what is a family to do? So they find other alternatives. And so now you're left with this big home that might be vacant. And so you stuff it with 10 individuals. That's the alternative.
Then we get into the college rental. So you really need to think about, when you're looking for a realtor, you need to ask them, can you give me an example of some people who you've helped get an investment property and what sort of profits they're realizing? I usually will help people either connect with a real estate management company, or like I will charge a flat hourly rate and help them get it listed online. I will refer them to lawyers. I will refer them to lenders. I will refer them to everyone they need as part of the process, because if I'm selling you a house, you better be able to friggin' rent it at a profit.
And manage it and care for it and be ready for what's about to happen to you, because landlording is no small business.
It isn't, and you can get yourself into a lot of trouble if you don't do it correctly. But also, I'm not doing my job if I just sell you the house and say bye. And so I would really challenge you to say, to ask realtors that you're interested in, even if it's your regular realtor, ask them, do you have any clients who've recently bought an investment property? How's that property doing?
Okay.
I check in with my investors. I usually get referrals from my investors' tenants for clients once they're ready to move on to their own house. Like the investor clients that I work with are happy because they're making money, and I make sure that they are continuing to make money. You're a good realtor will know those numbers. And if they're like, I'm not sure, I haven't checked in with them in a while, that's kind of a red flag for me.
So when we're meeting with a realtor, my answer is still, I don't know what my goals are. I'm supposed to be buying a house. I have some money and I'm supposed to be buying a house, and I want to make it a good investment.
And it's a great way to do it, just so you know. It's a good thing.
It is. But I think that you, as an investor's realtor, especially a newbie investor, you're going to walk them through some options. You're going to ask all these questions. You're going to have that interview with them. You're going to ask these questions. And I think you're going to help them identify what different options they have available with investing, as in, are you going to buy a single family home and rent part of it to help offset your mortgage payment and make a little bit of income that way?
Or are you going to buy a duplex and live in one side and rent out the other?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to buy a house that you strictly rent out to someone
that you're not going to live in at all?
Are you in the area or willing to travel to the area frequently to deal with your rental? Other questions that they should ask you is what areas do you want to be in? Do you want to be, at least particularly for people in big cities, this is a big one. Do you want to be in the city or in the surrounding counties? Mm-hmm. There are different rules and regulations within the city of Portland than there are outside of Multnomah County. Portland, you can own and make a good profit off of a rental, even a long-term rental in Portland, Oregon, but you need to know the rules. You need to have a good lawyer, and you need to make a very shrewd decision about what that long-term rental is and be very choosy about the property you pick so that you will actually make money. A lot of times I will advise people out of the city area when they are, especially if they're risk averse, because Washington and Clackamas County, you can make similar amounts of money, but you don't have as many restrictions or hoops to jump through with your rentals.
County legislation is a little bit more lax. City guidelines and ordinances is the word I'm looking for, are different in neighboring counties, which are only 10 minutes away.
Yeah.
So there are things to consider to help you hone in on where you want to be, not only type of property you want to be in, where you want it to be. Now, how are we going to figure out, how do we know? We know this now. All right, we're buying here and we're buying here. How do we know if it's a good deal?
You as a consumer should be looking at what we call comparables, but your realtor should also be able to tell you what a good deal is. So
I was hoping you'd give me the standard answer.
Huh?
I was hoping you'd give me the standard answer.
The standard answer?
Of, do you want a good deal or do you want a good investment?
Okay. Shannon's, so I say this to a lot of people. So what Shannon's referring to is, so many people, especially first-time investors, come to me and they'll say, I want a good deal. And what I say,
don't we all?
Say, do you want a good deal or do you want a good investment? Because what is a good deal monetarily isn't always a good investment. You can get a cheap house and it'll be on the freeway and it'll never rent and it'll never appreciate.
And you can never sell it.
And you'll never sell it, but you'll get it $100K under market for sure. I can find you those, but if I'm doing my job, I'm finding you a good investment. I'm finding you something that's going to cash flow. I'm finding you something that's going to be consistently rented. A lot of people don't realize that unrented time on a property kills your profit margins way more than anything else.
Well, imagine what your mortgage payment is, and if you have zero rent, if you aren't living in that property, you're paying for wherever you're living, and then you have zero tenants, now you're paying twice.
Yeah.
Fine.
Vacancy is the enemy of success in long-term rentals. The other thing is, do you want a long-term rental? Do you want a short-term rental? short-term rentals are getting really popular in big cities because of things of channels like Robuilt and Bigger Pockets, and you can make a mint doing short-term rentals.
Mm-hmm.
Those also have to be done very well. And if you're going to do a short-term rental, you better be prepared to front a good chunk of money in design and furniture and other services. You also need to decide if you're going to manage it yourself.
You need the time to turn that unit every single day.
Or you need to pay someone to do it. And just so you know, short-term rental management companies charge between 25 and 30%.
Oof. I have a friend here in Portland-ish who has a duplex with a long-term renter on one side and the short-term Airbnb the other side.
And I bet they spend all their time dealing with the Airbnb.
True. They don't live in town. They live out of town. This is the home they used to live in here. They've moved to Central Oregon. They manage it remotely. They have hired crews to help turn the unit each day for the new Airbnb tenant, and she stacked a few up. There are people on deck in case the first one calls in sick or can't make it, because it is very hard for the people in the Airbnb turnover business to make a good living also, right? So they stack their jobs, and they are constantly hustling to and from properties, which means they're frequently late, which means they frequently miss the check-in time for tenants arriving at the Airbnb. So now she has like 3 people on staff, and the people aren't just going to sit on staff and not get paid and like sit waiting, hoping for a phone call. So the costs are exponential and staggering, and it is a lot amount of work daily to manage these things.
It is. And so that's the thing you need to think about. I would never recommend a first-time investor that is not living in on-site do a short-term rental. If you are someone, a great way to get into a first-time investment, if you're someone who like I have clients who they want to do short-term investment, they have done a ton of research, and they are willing to put in the work that they know goes into it. I mean, they're going to learn a lot more once they get into it. But they bought a house specifically because the basement of the unit lended itself to being turned into a short-term rental. And their plan is to convert the basement and rent it out and use it as a short-term rental. So I have people who do that, but those people knew exactly what they're getting into. If you're off-site, if you are out of state thinking you're going to buy your first investment property, which actually happens a lot here, by the way, I get a lot of people, especially young tech money or young military, that tend to want to buy their first investment property because they just got back from tour and they came back with a big chunk of cash and they want to use it wisely, or they just cashed out their IPO and they don't really want to leave like the Bay Area or LA right away or New York right away, but they do want to have something that's making money passively for them. And they usually ask me, what about short-term rentals? And I say, are you going to move here? Are you going to live in it?
Are you going to give away 50% of your profits to manage that?
And if the answer to all those 3 is no, then we find them a nice long-term rental that's going to make them $500 to $700 a month, and which is the average, by the way. Unless you pay cash, that's your average.
But is that really what the opportunity cost of cash and what you could have been investing that cash in elsewhere? You have to factor that into what your actual cash flow is compared to everybody else's cash flow who's investing less money. There's a comparable about that to think through.
There is, and your realtor should talk you through all of it. If you are looking for a realtor who specializes in investment, if they're not having a similar conversation to the one Shannon and I are having with you, they probably don't know a whole lot about investment real estate. I have realtors in my circle who I respect, who've been doing this for 20 plus years, who are super smart and amazing at their job. And I would personally, even though I have less tenure and technically less experience than them, say that I am a better investor's realtor than they are, because they have rental units that they are way under cash flowing. They're not getting what they could for it. They manage everything themselves, and they don't have rental management companies that they know well that do a good job.
But it's an area that you have chosen to specialize in and to focus in.
It is.
And to put your time and energy into learning so you can represent people specifically for that matter.
Exactly. And I also do people who just want to live in their house.
Yeah, don't get me wrong about that.
I would say it's more common that you are someone who is a real estate investor specialist and you can also do residential than it is that you are a residential specialist and can also do investment.
Wait, tell me one more time.
It is more common that a realtor specializes in real estate investment and is also very good at selling residential real estate than it is someone specializes in residential real estate and can also advise on
correct.
investment.
All right. Yes. Whew.
Does that make sense?
That was a tongue twister for my brain. Yes, I got that.
I would consider myself someone who specializes in investment and also can advise on residential.
I agree about that. I actually wholeheartedly agree about that. I have seen it firsthand. There are lots of realtors who are great at their job selling single family homes. And when an investor opportunity comes up, they don't have this deep set of knowledge to help analyze deals, run numbers, project long-term gains, factoring in appreciation, and all these other things that factor into long-term plans. There are a few who do it, but there are not as many as I would say. You're right. Investors, specialist realtors can transfer those skills to single-family residential homes where they aren't necessarily transferable in the reverse way. That was also another brain tongue twister. I can see how that got tricky and hard to follow. So let me be clear about that. The ability to analyze a real estate investment deal about cash flow, analysis, long-term projections, projecting appreciation, that's all math-specific investing, real estate advising. None of those words went together, but I think we get where I'm going. That transfer to help somebody analyze a single family home as an investment purchase for their family to live in. Those are transferable ideas that work well with each other.
It doesn't go the other
direction. It doesn't go the other way. If somebody is advising you to purchase a single family home for your family to live in and invest in and be a long-term home, that set of information doesn't necessarily mean you know how to calculate cash flow on a 4-unit property 10 years from now.
Yep. And that's something you have to keep in mind. I am always trying to, when I look at investments, I'm not just looking at your cash flow either. I'm looking at where is this neighborhood going to be in the next 5 years? Where is it going to be in the next 10? And I'm going to ask you, how long do you plan to hold this property?
Yes. What is the plan about this?
It's funny. We started this out with what questions should you ask your realtor? And really the answer is you shouldn't. They should be asking you questions.
Very true.
They should be asking you questions. I have clients get really fixated on, we started out talking about the interest rates and how financing an investment property right now is tricky because interest rates they're not the highest they've ever been. A lot of people think that they're super high and it's like the end of the world. And a lot of realtors who got into real estate in the golden age of real estate, which has been like the last 2-3 years, where we've had just a crazy market all over the United States and I think most other areas of the world with the great work from home movement that happened. We had this unique situation where real estate was just booming and lots of people were getting into it and making a lot of money really quickly because it was easy to do. You could put a house on the internet and it would sell, or you could pick up clients because everybody was buying.
But here we are in lean times.
And those same people are saying, oh, interest rates are the highest they've ever been. They're not, guys.
Negative.
No. And they're also going to go down eventually. So you have to think in as an investor, you shouldn't be thinking about the here and now.
The interest rates today, if you are purchasing an investment property, do not matter.
They do not matter if you're going to hold it for 30 years.
Interest rates are relative to current inflation, which is inflation is high, rates are high. That means that the actual rate you're paying is middle ground.
And you know what? I also have a lot of people who say, I want to buy a house to live in, but I want to rent it out in the next 5 years.
Cool.
We can do that. That is also a thing that we have to think about more thoroughly. I've got a client who is buying a house right now that they plan to live in for a few years and then rent out. And their big concern is, can we cash flow this? And I was like, probably, yeah. But we need to be careful about how much we put into it because it's going to be a rental. And that's, I think, the thing where people get the most away from themselves when it comes to investment. They see houses with heated floors in the bathroom and, really beautiful marble countertops and in great family neighborhoods. And they're like, that's going to be a great investment. And you know what I'm going to tell you? I'm going to tell you that heated floor is going to break and you're going to get complaints about it. I'm going to tell you that marble countertop is going to stain and it's going to look like shit in 5 years. And I'm going to tell you that the super high-end wood floors throughout the house are going to need to be replaced in 6 months because you don't put hardwood floors in family rentals. You put in LVP. So that's just is a very different game. What you would take care of in a home that you would enjoy is not the same thing that you need to think about for a rental for another person. So that's my spiel.
Man, it's a lot of things to think about. You're right about that. It's a hard line to walk. If you are buying a house now, you want to love the house you're in and have all the nice things that you want your house to have and have your space be what you want it to be. But if you know you're not going to be there forever, nobody's in one place forever. That's not a thing. Very seldom is that a thing. So let's stop with that business. You're not going to be there forever. If you're going to be there for a time and you know that you're going to move up and move on, you have to think about it in those terms to make sure that A, what you've put out to buy that house, and then 2, repairs, maintenance, upgrades along the way, all factor into the long-term plan of, is this a good investment long-term? Because if you go to the work to put in all these nice finishes and do some upgrades and things even after you've bought it, depending on how the math turns out, it might come out to be your best bet is to sell that house and take profit.
Yep.
And enroll that money into the purchase of another property as opposed to rent this really nice house that you've made that a tenant's going to trash. Even if you put really nice tenants, things happen.
Yeah.
And wear and tear is going to happen.
Yeah. And it's important that that's part of why an investment realtor, someone who specializes in that, is more valuable than a residential realtor in that situation, because residential realtors are trained to look at finishes and the nice things in a home to calculate value. An investment realtor is trained to look at what are you going to have to pay to replace in the next with every tenant and what's going to hold up over time. Like my parents, for example, they just had a tenant move out after 2 years. Great tenant, paid on time consistently. And they went to redo. Now they live in another state. I'm actually not their realtor. They have a great realtor who specializes in investment property there. She has 35 rentals of her own that she owns cash outright. She's a cool lady. If you need a realtor in Colorado Springs, I got a great referral for you. But every time they buy a house, if it has carpet in it, after the first tenant moves out, they always replace the carpet with LVP.
Yep.
And they almost always replace the countertops with quartz or something hard wearing. And in this case, the house wasn't making enough profit month over month to justify the quartz. And they were talking with me about it. And I was like, I would just do the floors this time and wait till your Formica countertops look like crap and then replace them.
Save up the money with the cash flow you're making that pays for that investment, so you are not upside down and taking money from personal funds to pay for what is supposed to be an investment.
Correct. So those are the sorts of things that an investment realtor is going to advise you on. You can take or leave their advice.
Yeah.
But
they're also going to help you do that analysis of when do you dump a loser? Is it, if whatever they're making, your parents, for example, are making on this house, and it's not enough to generate the standard turnover that the rest of their investments are making, is that the right one?
Yeah.
There is an analysis to be done about when do you let things go, reap your profits, and roll it into something else that is going to serve your next step.
Yes.
That is a thing.
And the other thing you need to consider as an investor as you're getting into this is, I don't want it to just sound like we're only looking at numbers, because that's not the case. Good investors care about the quality of life that they're providing for their tenants. Shannon has tenants and she cares a lot about the quality of life that her tenants have, but she's got to make a living. I care a lot about the quality of life of tenants, and I think that tenants' rights are valid rights, and that they are a really important thing to consider when you're looking at a rental. So I'm not saying like people should live in squalor and and I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Oh yeah, no, it is 100%. I am 100% of the mind. You take care of your tenants, they will do right by you.
Yes.
Don't be a slumlord, please. That sucks.
Yeah.
Nobody likes that. Do right by your tenants, and they will generally do right by you. This is a circular game that we're in. We are here for each other. You're asking for a service of me by providing housing. I'm providing that housing to you. I'm providing you a service. Let's be friends about it and treat each other fairly and kindly.
Absolutely.
In ways that make sense.
Exactly. And the other thing that you also need to consider when you're looking for an investment realtor is, will they give you referrals of other will they let you talk to their investors? I have clients who, if I ask them, hey, can I give a prospective client your phone number so they can ask you what it was like to work with me? They will say wholeheartedly yes.
As they should.
And if you ask, that's a good question to ask someone.
Nice.
Say, can I talk to someone who's bought an investment property with you and ask them about their experience? If they're like, oh, I don't know if I don't give out my clients' phone numbers. They might say, that's a red flag. Some people will be like, I don't give out my clients' phone numbers, sorry. Which is a way to get you to not ask them any more questions. I will say, if I haven't asked that person to give out their phone number, I'll say, absolutely. Let me just make some calls and make sure it's okay for me to share their information.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got people you can talk to. And they'll tell you exactly how it was to work with me, which is 99.999% of the time amazing. I
can't even believe that there's the 0.001 that wasn't.
There isn't. I just feel like I need to say that because we're on the internet. I've never had anyone be unhappy with my work. I'm sure eventually it'll happen because I'm human, but
any day soon.
I've never had a client be unhappy with what I've done for them, and that is because I give a lot of shits about what I do.
Of course.
And a good realtor will. So yeah. I would say, so in summary, a good realtor will ask you more questions than you ask them.
And the realtor you choose to purchase an investment property with, or to even consider using a property as an investment in any sort, might be different than the realtor you might work with to buy a single family home or whatever kind of home that you're just going to live in. Just is a terrible word to say because it is more than just a house to live in, but the home that you're going to live in as your family home.
Yeah. And maybe you live in an area where there isn't like a lot of people who specialize in real estate investment. Or maybe you have a realtor that you love and are really loyal to, but they don't specialize in real estate investment. Also consider that you can hire an investment consultant. Like you can hire me to consult on properties if you're looking at
to help analyze deals.
That is a thing you can do.
Awesome.
I can't advise you on anything related to a transaction out of the states I'm licensed in, but I can help you look at a deal and tell you whether it's a good investment.
All right, let's talk about that. Thank you very much. So I was going to say that if you live in an area where there isn't an investment realtor or a realtor specialized in investments, or that you haven't found your person yet, or things along those lines, don't compromise. Don't choose a realtor who doesn't know what they're doing to help you. That's bad news bears. Don't do that. So let's talk about that. You can help people analyze deals. If I were to send you a listing and it says, this is my house in whatever, Kansas.
Yep.
Here's the price. Here's the current rent. What do I do now? Is this a good deal for me?
Yeah, I'm allowed to tell you as a third-party consultant whether or not, and I can help walk you through the numbers.
As a fee for service, I can ask you to help me analyze this deal.
Yep.
And what is that? What are we going to do when we analyze that deal?
What I usually do is I teach you how to analyze it yourself.
Thank you.
That is what I do.
Thank you.
I like teaching people how to fish. That is my favorite thing to do. Usually by the time anybody I work with is going into a second property, or honestly, after the first couple houses we see, they start repeating things back to me that I have been telling them.
If you're going to be purchasing a property of any sort, I don't care how or why you're purchasing it, you have to understand the whys and the hows and how it works, how the financing works, what the point of it is. If you're going to buy anything that you are anticipating on making money on, you have to know how to analyze that deal.
It's way too much money. There's way too much money involved in the process of purchasing real estate for you to take a backseat to your financial well-being.
And putting blind trust in another person to make a good investment for you is never, fiduciary responsibilities or not. Don't put blind trust in your financial advisor either and trust them to make all the good investments for you. You wouldn't generally do that. You are keeping track of what they're investing in for you and making sure that your portfolio is doing what you're anticipating it doing. Same thing. Don't just put blind trust in somebody and put it on autopilot, please. That's
yeah. So
all right. But I've got a property in Kansas. I've got X amount of dollars to spend. I think that this deal in Kansas is a good deal. Is it?
Usually the first thing I ask is, well, what are other properties in the area renting for?
Okay.
I will ask you who your ideal tenant is. Essentially, if any of you are familiar with selling products, renting real estate is just a specific product that you're selling.
Okay.
You're trying to get people to exchange money for a place to live, which means your place that you're offering to live needs to be good enough for them to feel like they can exchange money, everyone. And if it is not good enough, they will just stop paying you or they will move out. So
okay.
That's a good way. That's a way to put it, is like, that's what happens when you don't have a good rental. It either doesn't rent or people stop paying in the squat. It's true.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, so if you're, let's say you're in the middle of Kansas, the realtor you work with has been really wonderful for helping you buy a few residential properties. But they tell you, look, there's not a lot of market for investment property here. There's nothing wrong with that. It's okay if you live in a small community and there's not a ton of people who specialize in investments. You know what that means? That means you broke into the market early. That means that you likely have an opportunity to make a lot more money because you're one of the first people to invest in it. Yeah. We just need to look at it with a very critical eye. So what I will first do is I will ask you how much the house is. I will ask you what your lender says your payment's going to be. I will then take you to several rental advertising sites where people advertise their rentals. And I will have you search the zip code that house is in. And I will have you look at what other rents are going for in this area. If what you want to rent the property for is greater than your mortgage payment by, I would say, at least $400 to $500. $500 is really the sweet spot.
It is, and that might depend on the area where you're at.
It does. Right? There are going to be some areas where that's just not realistic, but I would say the margin, you should be making like 20% to 30% every month off of your mortgage payment. Okay. I think that's a pretty safe number. Am I doing that math right, Shannon? Hold on, let's just do it real quick because I need to make sure. So let's say your payment is $2,000 a month. Rents in that area are between $25 and $27.
So let's say 20% of $2,000 is $400.
Okay, so if your payment is $2,000 a month and rents in that area are $2,500 on average, that is a great investment.
Making more than 20%.
That's way more than you're going to get in any bank. That's more than you're going to get on most stocks. Like, you are going to make, that is a good money maker.
Sure. I think there are some other things you might think through them with also, right? Got to look at like taxes, upcoming assessments, things that are happening in their county to make sure that you're helping project and costs going forward, a few pro formas regarding what utilities you're going to pay and projected expenses.
We're getting to those. So the other thing I'm going to do if I'm consulting with you is I'm going to say, okay, well, why don't we look at who are the big employers in that area? Is there a market for long-term ability to rent this out? Are you in like Nowheresville, Hicksville? That's probably not a great rental market because if there's no one employing people, they can't pay rent.
Sure. Or are you near a hospital that employs travel nurses?
Awesome. Yeah. Are you near an Amazon distribution center? Is one being built nearby?
Are you near these giant middle of the country areas where they're building huge production facilities for things and people are coming in for construction jobs, and that's a short-term deal versus a long-term deal? And
so those are all factors we're going to look into. I'm going to tell you to go pull newspaper articles about what's going on in your business community. I'm going to help direct you to the things that will help you make a sound decision about it. And ultimately, you're going to make the choice. I can't make it for you. It would be super illegal and frowned upon. But what I can do is I can tell you, like, yes, this is a good profit margin. This has high likelihood of rentability. This is a good long-term rental or short-term rental, depending on the situation.
Highest and best use considering these factors.
Absolutely.
Or no.
Or no, that's a terrible idea. This might be a great family market, but you're not going to make any money. And there are places here that people are like, I had someone ask me recently about Lake Oswego, which Lake Oswego is a highly desirable area for people in this area to live in. It is great for families.
It's where the Trailblazers live.
It's where like, it's very shishi, and it's super nice. It's really cute downtown area, really cute farmers market on the weekends during the summers. But I would never advise someone to purchase a rental investment property there.
Well, good luck affording it.
Because it's not affordable, and the people who can afford to buy investment properties in that area are just buying houses to live in.
Yeah, that's not a rental neighborhood.
It's not. But I might tell you that, like, the neighborhood I live in is called Lentz, and it is a great rental market because it is a highly... I'll look at transit scores. Transit scores are huge. Walkability is huge in metropolitan areas. I mean, in any area, walkability is huge, I would say. It doesn't matter if it's a metropolitan area or a rural area. If you can walk to a coffee shop, that immediately makes a place more appealing to people. Ability to go to cool things without having to pay for parking or drive a long way is huge.
Yeah.
So like Lentz is a neighborhood that's been up and coming the last several years, and it's kind of going through a lot of growing pains with gentrification and the ongoing homelessness issue in Portland. However, rents in the neighborhood are crazy. It is an average of $2,000 to $2,200 a month for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath at 720 square feet, and you can buy a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, a nice 2-bedroom, 1-bath home in Lentz between $400 and $450. If you have enough to put down, you can make a profit on that. But if you are doing like a very low down payment, you can't. So those are all things that we factor in. It's part of why the question of what is your payment going to be is so huge.
And opportunity cost of the money it's going to take for you to put down to make that payment work.
Yes. And I would also say the other thing that I'm going to want you to look at is what is it going to need done in the next 10 years? As the landlord, when you are the landlord, you can't call the landlord to fix something for you. You have to be the one to fix it.
You are the one who takes the phone call.
I have a lot of friends. I will, like, especially my friends that I sell houses to, they'll, after they buy a house and something goes wrong, they'll usually call me and they'll be like, so I realized today that when this thing broke that I was the one that have to fix it. Because that's part of owning a home. And when you are a landlord over a property, it can't be like if the roof develops a leak that's leaking into your tenant's house, if you live there, you can, and you don't want to deal with it right away, you can wait until a couple of weeks or a couple of months to fix it. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can if it's your house and you're the one that has to deal with it. But when you have a tenant living in there, you have an obligation to give them a safe and livable space, which means whatever the market rate is for repairing that at that time.
Emergency roof man, they're expensive.
They are. So those are things you need to look at. How's the roof? Does it have a warranty?
Years left on the roof, usable life, all that good stuff.
How is the hot water heater? How are the major systems looking? And so on and so forth. And the other piece is, your insurance. How big of an insurance policy should I consider? You need to consider that expense very carefully, because things break more often or get damaged more often in rentals than a house that you're living in full time.
Sure. And also just general liability insurance. What if somebody gets injured on the property that you own?
Yeah. You don't want them coming for your house, do you? No. So
those are all costs that factor in to the total insurance cost you carry every month.
And just so you know, when I say, like, when I'm asking you what your monthly costs are, in this context that we're talking about right now, I'm asking what your mortgage, PMI, and insurance payment
and taxes are. PITI. Principal and interest, taxes, and insurance. And mortgage insurance is this silent syllable in there.
Yeah. Because if you look at just like the mortgage insurance is a silent symbol. If you just that was funny. If you just look at your mortgage payment every month, you might be making great margins. And a lot of times, particularly realtors who don't have experience with investment property, they'll look at the mortgage payment that they're getting from you or your lender, and they'll say, oh, man, that's like $700. That's awesome. But what I'm going to do is, as with my clients, or if I'm consulting for someone, I'm going to say, what are your total monthly costs on this unit? And they're going to tell me, oh, well, my mortgage is this much. I'll say, okay, what's your insurance? What's this? What's that? So that $2,000, I'm saying you need to be making,
that $2,000 payment should be all inclusive of your total monthly expenses.
And you want your profit margin to be on top of that.
Yeah.
It doesn't do you any good if you're making $500 extra a month off of your mortgage, but your insurance and your, maintenance costs exceed $500. You're still losing money. So that's another thing you need to think about. A big thing is like rental management.
Yeah.
And whether or not you want to manage it yourself or pay a management company.
That's 10% out of your profit margin right there.
Yep. And I do not do rental management. Please, nobody email me and ask me that.
I will not answer that email.
I will not answer that email. I will not do rental management.
Oh, no.
I will occasionally, if you're for out-of-state clients, I've gone and opened doors and shown houses for people at my consulting rate. But I will not manage rental properties because there's a whole bunch of financial stuff and bookkeeping you got to do that.
Oh, it's very detailed, very litigious, very specific. If you don't do everything down to the T regarding a tenant and delivering notices, the tenant now wins by default if you have made an error.
Yep. And
they are in the right, you are in the wrong, and you basically have that tenant for life because you can't get rid of them regardless of what they've done to your property if you have done something incorrect in paper delivery.
At least in Oregon. Other areas of the country I know are not that intense, but no matter what, you should be doing things by the book and by the law.
And you want to be doing things right and accurately and correctly in the first place, so choose the professionals to do that for you.
And just to give you perspective, I already hire other people to do my bookkeeping for me. I don't want to do it for anyone else, so I will not manage your rental, but I will refer you to someone who's very good at it. So those are all factors you have to account for. Can you manage a rental from out of state by yourself? For sure. It's harder.
Yeah. Prepare to work and time zones and all those other things just complicate all the matters.
Yep.
But it's doable if you really have the desire. But I would say that's two things. I was about to say that is a more sophisticated investor's game, but I would argue that sophisticated investors aren't playing that game.
No.
They've wised up to the fact that it's real hard work.
Most sophisticated investors, I look at the time value of money and they will pay someone else to do it. Yeah. They might establish their own rental management company and pay those people a lower rate than what they'd have to pay for paying a third party.
Bingo.
But they will not do it themselves. But in the beginning, I actually think it's a great idea to manage your own rentals if you have the time for it.
If you have accurately found the laws and rules and regulations of your area to do it correctly.
You should be real good friends with your lawyer.
Oh, it's become an expert in landlord-tenant law in your area if you even have an inkling of doing that yourself, because
it is fully worth paying legal fees to a lawyer to have them check over your listing information. It is fully worth it to pay legal fees for contracts to be drawn up correctly for your rentals.
Oh, yes. Yes.
But I actually do think it's a really good idea to manage your own investments when you get going, because it teaches you the ropes. And then when you get to a point where you're making enough money, you hire out a third party or you develop your own rental management company to do it. So in conclusion,
your realtor that you are considering to help you purchase an investment property should know all of this stuff. And if they don't even come close to asking any of these questions,
you probably should find someone else.
May have the wrong person on your team for that task.
But I am happy to give you a referral.
Sure.
As we're wrapping up, we do have a contacts page on our website. It's pretty much the only thing other than our bios on our website and the listen here button.
That's all you need.
So if you do live out of state and you want to find someone who's good with real estate investment properties,
oh yes, we can help.
I will
connect
help you find someone. We will both help you with that. So if you don't know anyone who knows a good investment realtor, me and Shannon probably do.
Oh, we can certainly find it. And Sorsha can help you analyze deals and think through some options for her consulting rate if you are looking at properties.
Yep.
Absolutely. So there's a contact page there. Send us your questions. Send us what you got. Let us know what you're thinking of, how you feel about this.
If this was helpful or not. If you have any specific questions about real estate, I will do my best to ask them as long as they're within what I'm allowed to share with my licensure.
Will you manage my properties?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I will not. Thank you very much, Shannon. You should stick with the company that you're with.
Okay.
And thank you so much for listening, guys. As always, it is a pleasure. We hope that you enjoy doing this listening to us as much as we love doing it.
Because we're just having fun.
We're having a really good time. And we need listeners to keep doing it. Otherwise, we really don't have good justification for doing this. So please subscribe, share this with your friends, and let us know what you want to hear next time.
Yeah, let's also send us suggestions. If there are specific things you'd like us to talk about or know, we're happy to work that out.
Yeah, we will answer anything we can legally answer.
All right. Well, there you go. There you had it. Dig in your legal pockets and find those questions.
Thanks for listening to the Laddercast. Have a good day.